welcome everybody for this 18th Iron and Steel Summit. This is the inauguration session of this 18th Iron and Steel Summit. And I would straight away request Rasika, madam, to start her address. But before that, I would like to say a few words about Rasika, madam. Rasika Chaube is an IDAS officer of 1986 batch, presently posted as Additional Secretary, Ministry of Steel, Government of India. She is a postgraduate in psychology and MPhil from Annamalai University. During her vast and rich experience in civil services, she has held several positions of importance, which includes Joint Secretary and Financial Advisor to the President Secretariat, with 2 Honorable Presidents of India and Principal Integrated Financial Officer to the Indian Air Force, where her office was awarded the Raksha Mantri Award for Excellence 2017. During her stint in Rashtrapati Bhavan, she has worked in the areas of culture, women empowerment, agriculture, and environment. Last three years, she is associated with Ministry of Steel, and she is leading the industry from the front with many reforms in the industry, including the latest PLI scheme, which was formulated and conceptualized by her only. And so I welcome Rasika madam to start her address. Rasika madam, please.
Thank you so much. I think you said more than I deserve, but thank you anyways for whatever you mentioned. Welcome everyone. And firstly, I would like to thank Steel World and I think the co-organizers JPC for organizing this 18th Iron and Steel Summit webinar, which is being held today. And I've seen that there's a lot of fruitful discussions will take place. And as far as I'm concerned, you've asked me to speak about the emerging out of the pandemic, how we have come out of the pandemic, and you would like me to do a kind of a status review of the domestic steel industry thereafter. I'm really happy that we are doing this kind of stock taking and a status review, which is really needed so that we can really arrive at what all we have gone through, how we have emerged, and what is the way forward. And while doing so, I would also mention about what the Ministry of Steel has been doing, because it's a deregulated sector. We can only help create a kind of an ecosystem where the steel sector grows. Now, before I do a kind of a status review, as I've been asked to do, I would just like to recap in brief what are the challenges which were thrown at us during the pandemic. Now, the first thing which happened was the demand slowdown. You're all aware that the auto and this construction and infrastructure sector, which provides at least 68% comes from construction, around 9 to 10% comes from auto. Both of them were going through an absolute slowdown. With all these major auto companies, whether it's Maruti, Hyundai, Hero Honda, or Escorts, Ford, Kia, all of them kind of suspended their operations during that time. And because of which the demand of steel went down, and there was a lot of problems which was faced by the steel sector. And you would be aware that most of our steel players, the big ones especially and the smaller ones, all of them had to either curtail their production or totally stop it. Now, I recollect that all the ISPs, they had kind of, they had slowed down and cut down their operations. And Tata Steel, I remember they were discussing about their downstream standalone units, which are in Maharashtra and Uttar Pradesh. They were planning to close them down. Similarly, our smaller players, the pellet manufacturers, the sponge iron makers, then the ferroalloy plants, all of them went through a very bad patch during that time. So there was scaling down of production. Then there were supply chain challenges which we faced. Now, you all will recollect that sourcing of raw material was becoming a major issue, especially coking coal, which had to come out. There were issues on that. Then iron ore availability was also becoming an issue during that time. The operations were impacted. Then the sourcing of consumables, the refractories, all of them, that became an issue during that time. Apart from that, logistics, the interstate movement, that was one of the major challenges which was thrown at us. Truck movement was transporting raw material, taking finished steel, all that was impacted. Then ports, you all will recollect, there was a force majeure which was declared at the ports. there was absolute congestion. Then the custom staff had reduced. There was a huge line for clearances, and especially evacuation from the ports was becoming an issue. Manpower was another area which was impacted, like, how to get people to run your plants. And then there were capital related, cash flow related issues. Employees had to be paid despite the fact that things were not happening, and there were fixed charges which continued to be made. So, and on one hand, government did try to have some measures which were announced by the RBI, but there was a slow adoption of the same in the steel sector. So all these challenges we all faced, and at that point of time, I would like to place on record that there was a lot of work which was done by the ministries, the government. You will recollect that the Ministry of Steel immediately had issued a letter to all the chief secretaries across pan India, telling them that we came under the essential services, and as a result we were supposed to be given the right of way. And that really worked. All our steel players worked effectively. They were given an opportunity, where they could operate despite the pandemic. And then we had the government announced several, in 5 tranches, you will recollect, there were fiscal measures, and certain finance ministry announced several schemes, and the stimulus packages were announced. You will, and all this put together was done so that we could come out of the pandemic, not only the steel sector, the economy at large. Now, I would like to here mention approximately 103 lakh crore worth of infrastructure packages were announced in various tranches. And if you will recollect that out of those, the Bharatmala project, which was supposed to bring in around 25 million ton of requirement in next 4 to 5 years. Similarly, there was the Jal Jeevan mission that was announced and taken forward. The Udan, that 100 additional airports were to come up. Then there was an expansion of the gas network, metro networks, then Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. All this put together would bring in, I think in the next 3 to 4 years, they're expected to bring a huge amount of increased demand. So the pandemic, though pandemic placed some challenges in front of us, but we were trying to find opportunities in that. We were trying so that it could be a win-win despite the sufferings which we all went through. Then there was the dedicated freight corridor, the Sagarmala project, and the National Solar Mission. All this put together have placed the steel sector in a very advantageous position in terms of the requirement that we generated. And it is expected that we expect that by the time we achieve all this, there would be the capacity addition from the current 142 would go up to around 210, 211, in which our smaller players, the mini steel plants, our secondary players will also play a very important role. We expect around a 60% of capacity addition to come from them, and they would be the major beneficiaries of all this which is happening. I think there's a lot of disturbance which is coming in. There are some people who have their mics on probably. So I could just request people if you can switch off their mics, please, because. So now in this scenario, I would just like giving you the background of what it was. Now let us examine what was the impact on the production, the consumption pattern. Now, if we take the figures which your co-sponsors JPC has given me, I mean, you will find that in the month of April to July, the production of crude steel really came down. Like normally we produce around 9 million ton on a monthly basis. In the month of April, it came down to 3 million ton. That was last year. Similarly, in the month of May, it went up a little to 6 million ton, 7 million ton. But I was very happy to see that we bounced back very soon. Whatever depression in production took place was only during the first 3 months. After that, the production did start despite all the challenges we faced. And I find that the production which happened thereafter from the month of August to the end of the financial year was more than what was on if you compare to a similar period in the previous year. It was in fact 7.8% more than what was produced in 1920. And similarly, the production which was done by the secondary steel players from August to March 2021 went up. It again increased, and it was higher than what they produced in the previous year. So that is one fact which, it's really important, that despite the challenges, we did recover very fast. There were depression in imports, but I think sometimes it's a happier situation that we don't import much, we use our own material. But yes, there are certain product categories which we have to import, and because we don't manufacture them in sufficient numbers, that also suffered. There was a depression in the imports which came in from the month of April to October, and thereafter the trade has continued to be normal, business as usual. The only thing that came to the benefit or advantage of players at that point of time, the steel players, was the export opportunities. And you are all aware, and I think it's a happy situation that during the month of April to September to August, we were able to export, and whatever depression in demand took place domestically could be met with what was happening with the exports which we did abroad. So that was a happy situation. And after that, once the demand increased domestically, our players have stood by the domestic demand, and their exports have reduced, and they export only when the domestic demand is not met. So as a result, the steel sector has taken care of all the interest in the needs of the thing, and at the same time taken care that they balance their commercial dealings during the time when the demand was less in the country. Now, one of the major challenges which the steel sector also faced was on account of the rising iron ore prices and the reduced availability. You're aware that it was the same period when some of our mines, which were auctioned, they lapsed in March 2020, and they were supposed to start functioning, but unfortunately, out of the 17 to 18 mines which were auctioned in Odisha, only a few came into circulation at that point of time, because of which the production, what was around 82 million tons by November of iron ore in the previous year, it was, I think, 117 million tons in the previous year. We could produce around 82 million tons. There was a slight reduction in the availability. But I must say here that generally what we produce, the iron ore which we produce in the country, is generally on the higher side. So as a result, the gap is able to meet the demand. So despite the reduction, we were able to fend for the requirement, though it was slightly a challenge, and I will share with you the measures which we took to address these issues. And while the availability of iron ore was reduced, one phenomena which we noticed during this time was that the export of iron ore went up very high, including pellets also. We, as against the 36 million ton which we exported in 1920, it went up to 57 million ton in the last year. So that was another major challenge, and we have been looking at ways and means of how we can address this issue, so that the raw material stays within the country, and it's only the value-added products which go out. So all these things, and as you all know, it's a demand-supply issue. Since the supply of iron ore was less, the prices of iron ore also shot up. And like what normally we used to have, NMDC prices, I'll share with you, that what was around 2,500 to start with went up to 4,500, and then around 6,000. So the prices really went up. But the only saving grace at that point of time was that coking coal prices were slightly low for the steel players. But now the situation is reversed, no doubt. But at that point of time, that was the situation that we were faced with. So in all this scenario, what we were faced, I think steel sector is one sector which is cyclical in nature. This kind of challenges you keep facing time and again. You will recall that even in 15-16, I mean, though the situation was a different situation, but because of the global overcapacity and dumping of steel in the country, again, the steel sector had faced a huge amount of challenge. And there also the government came into the rescue, and there were measures which were taken. There was support, whatever support could be extended was extended. and we recovered from that. So I think the steel sector is resilient. The government is there to extend the support, and we expect that sooner than later we have already come back to normalcy and we will progress further. Now, I would just like to share a few, measures which we took when we realized that, there were the kind of difficulties we all were going through in the steel sector. Now, see, we always follow in the Ministry of Steel a two-pronged approach. While on one side, we try to create an ecosystem whereby more investment comes in, more capacity addition takes place. On the other hand, we try to ensure that the demand goes up, and so for that, we try to go take a sectoral approach. We hold seminars and webinars along with various ministries like defense, railways, petroleum and natural gas, and agriculture, rural development. So wherever we feel there's a scope for enhancing steel usage, last year we have really spent our time on this, so that the whatever you people have suffered in the pandemic, we could help create demand. And once we bring the suppliers and the users together, we find that there is a traction which develops and which can move forward. Two of the major achievements which we had during this time was, one, we had a joint working group which we formed with the Ministry of Mahua, that is Urban Affairs, along with some of our technical experts from IITs, BIS and others. And we have wanted to develop designs for steel intensive houses, so that whatever is being announced by the PMAY, we can utilize steel in those. So the designs are ready now. We are the last leg, and we hope that those designs will be percolated and we could get benefit out of it. Similarly, we were in touch with defense, and they have modified their procurement procedure. They have a defense procurement procedure which they came out last year, in which now they have made that as far as possible, they would use domestically manufactured raw material, which also includes steel which is melted and manufactured in the country. So all these measures would go a long way in enhancing steel usage. So this is one thing which Ministry of Steel has done, apart from what the government at large has been doing. And so, I mean, this is just in brief, I would like to mention. Apart from that, to help out our smaller players, we have also issued a letter which, telling the CPWD, the Ministry of Road Transport, the Military Engineering Service, that we do not support production of steel from a particular route. It is route agnostic, and once it is certified by BIS, that would everyone should buy steel whatever is available. This has gone a long way in helping out our smaller players, so that their steel can also be utilized in major government projects. Now, apart from that, the second thing which last year we spent our entire time looking at is how to ensure, as I mentioned, availability of iron ore, which was a major concern for us. First thing we did for this was, even before the auction could take place, we got permission for sale to sell at least 70 million ton of its fines which they've accumulated over a period of time. We got them permission to sell it in open market, plus 25% of what they produce. Now the sales started doing that. In fact, last year they brought in around 4 to 5 million tons. They couldn't do much, but still they got 4 to 5 million ton in the open market. And now this provision has been further enhanced. All captive miners have been allowed to sell 50% of what they produce on a yearly basis. They are allowed to sell in open market. The whole idea of the thing is that the raw material which is available with captive miners should come and in the open market, and our players should, especially the smaller ones, should not be denied an opportunity to have access to that. Similarly, there were other issues which were really agitating the minds of our steel makers. One was, even if they got mines through auction, getting ECFC clearances was an issue. So we took up the matter, and now in the MMDR Act, some of you would be aware that ECFC is now linked with the mining lease, and it is, till the time the mineral resource is not exhausted, that ECFC, it remains. So you don't have to keep getting the ECFC clearances time and again, which is a very, very cumbersome process. So these were a few things which we did along with the Ministry of Mines, and along with that, there are directions to the state-owned companies like NMDC to ramp up their production. In fact, you'll all be very happy to know that the NMDC has been doing around 34 million tons generally. They would do another, this time, a 47 million ton they're targeting. So that's going to be a quantum jump in what they're going to do. Similarly, SAIL has been asked to produce, instead of the 30 which they do, to produce 40 and bring it in open market. All these measures are to facilitate and come out of the pandemic, whatever challenges we all have faced. Similarly, for coking coal also, we are trying to work out a lot of things. Coking coal is another area. We are trying to find, various other areas, resources, rather than depending only on Australia. We are trying to diversify our source of procuring. We've signed an MOU with Russia. Then we are trying to see that how domestic coking coal can be washed better by CIL, and it can be utilized through vending. So all these issues are being taken care of. Then there is another raw material, which is scrap, which all our people use. You are aware that we got the duty scrapped on it. So there is no duty, so that our people can get all this material without much difficulty. There's a steel, the scrap recycling policy, along with the end of use vehicle policy. All this is a step towards, facilitating and creating a ecosystem whereby raw material availability is ensured for our steel players. Then you're aware of the domestically manufactured iron and steel policy. Now, though it was made in 2017, we have brought about a lot of modifications, so that in the last year, so that the modification being that earlier it would apply only to projects which were above 25 crores. Now we brought it down to 5 lakh. Now it applies even to the EPC contracts, so that if suppose ONGC gives a contract to L&T or anyone, then those people have to also follow the DMISP policy, whereby you have to use steel which is domestically produced. Thereby, and in case you feel that you need to buy from import, then you cannot do that till you take permission from the Ministry of Steel. Now, putting all these, this kind of policies will definitely help us in, making things easier and more beneficial for the steel sector. Then, as was mentioned about the PLI scheme, yes, that is one scheme which we have brought. It is a collective effort in the Ministry of Steel, and the government has announced PLI policies for 13 sectors, and steel is just one of those sectors. We would be giving around 6,300 crores in this scheme for promote. And the main, the concept of the PLI is that you will produce not only for domestic consumption, but also become global champions. You will export, and it is for this reason that we have selected product categories which would have this kind of a scale. So we have kept coated plated steel, we have kept high strength and wear resistant steel, we have kept railway material, we have kept alloy steel products in this, and electrical steel. So there is a huge range. The guidelines are under preparation, would be coming out very shortly. We are consulting our stakeholders. And let me assure you that everything which is going in the scheme is for the benefit of the players, and we would want people to utilize it. So anything which would come in the way of its implementation, we would like to definitely ensure that those hurdles are removed. And that's the purpose. And I'll be very happy if our smaller players also, like mini steel plants, they could also utilize it, because value added steel would be, it's a downstream product, and you all can very well utilize the scheme for it. Just I would like to mention 3-4 more points which we do. One is that we have started a project developmental cell in the ministry. It was made last year in 2020. Again, with this is a joint exercise with Invest India. Main purpose, again, to bring in investment in the country, enhance steel production. So all these projects which are being done, which we take up in the ministry, is to add to the capacity which has been envisioned in our national steel policy. And we really hope that we are able to achieve the vision which we had kept for ourselves. Then let me share with you one or two things. SIMS, you are all aware, the Steel Import Monitoring System. Now, this is a system which we put in place basically for the benefit of all our steel manufacturers. You know, because the bill of entry and other things which are normally available when a person imports, those the bill of entry and all do not have the required grade, the granular details which you would as a steel maker require to know that what is coming in your country. So by doing this, we are making available, the person who imports has to put in a lot of detail about the end use and other things, which you people would really find it interesting. So we try to collect this data. So everyone who wants to import registered himself on our portal. This data, we anonymize the data. We don't leak out the name of the importer, but this anonymized data, along with all the details of what is going to come in, how much quantity, like what is the grade is going to be, and we put it up on our website, so it's available to you, and you can make your commercial decisions. So all these, in brief, which I'm mentioning, are steps which are for the benefit of the sector. Next is the quality control orders. You all would be aware that dumping of steel which is not of quality was happening in the past. Now we have 145 standards which have been covered. And these quality standards, out of the 145 standards, we've already enforced on 129. And sooner than later, all of them will be enforced. And I'm sure that this will be a great help, which you will find in the long run. Not only quality products will come in, and you will also be, you will also have a standard to make your products, so that you can also compete globally. Now, after that, one thing which I would like to request you, that now there is the buzzword is green steel, and we're all talking about that. So now, as we're coming out of the pandemic, you have to think about that, because sooner than later, the demand abroad would be of green steel, and how we'll make that and how we move towards that is a thing which ministry is working on. How we can use hydrogen. We are using gray and brown hydrogen as of now. How we can start using green hydrogen, and how we can make it available to you at a reasonable cost. Especially in the DRI route. So all that is an area where all of you will have to work on and start thinking about it. Ministry is working with MNRE, and we will be coming up with a national green hydrogen mission policy. And steel is one of the sectors which emits a lot of carbon. We are very high in carbon emission, and we are the ones who are going to be targeted in the long run. So I think sooner than later, we have to see that how we can start using coal gasification and then move to use natural gas. Yes, price is an issue, which again, we are trying to work out. So this is an area we all will have to work as we come out of the pandemic. And last, before I close, I would just like to share that the steel sector played a yeoman role, a service, and gave a yeoman service in terms of LMO supply during the pandemic. And I think this was one thing which I was personally monitoring on behalf of the Ministry of Steel. And I recollect that when the second wave started on the 1st of April, we were supplying around 538 or 500 tons of LMO. And then suddenly the requirement went up, and there was on 13th of May, I recollect the date, when we supplied around 5,000. And then it went up to, that was the peak we supplied. And out of the 6,000 which was being supplied, maximum came from us. And this was really appreciated. And in fact, the Prime Minister invited all our steel players, and he complimented the effort which the steel players put in. And not only did you all supply LMO, you also supplied direct gaseous oxygen. Oxygenated beds were created, which were called the jumbo COVID facilities. So 5,000 beds were put in place at the short notice of 15 to 20 days. And that's another thing which is very commendable. And I think whenever the time comes, steel sector always stands up. And I would like to compliment you for this. So with this, I won't take any more time, and I think I've already taken more than what was given to me. So thank you so much, and all the best for your function.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a really all-encompassing and very comprehensive sort of a speech. And indeed, steel industry has come to the help of the nation. And we did supply oxygen and other things, beds also during pandemic. And we are very proud to be part of this industry. And thanks very much for your directions also, madam, so that the industry can progress in future. And thank you very much. Thank you very much for your address and your involvement. Also, thanks Joint Plan Committee for their involvement in this event. And now we move forward. And I would request Mr. D. Kashiva to make his speech. But before that, I would like to say a few words about Mr. Kashiva. As many would know, Mr. Kashiva has spent his whole career in the Ministry of Steel as industrial advisor, and very, very familiar. The industry is very familiar with Mr. Kashiva, and he, of course, did his B metallurgy from NIT Jamshedpur. Before that, from my college, my senior, and and now he is leading Sponge and Manufacturers Association as executive director. And I invite Mr. Dipankar Kashiva to make his address.
Thank you, Mr. Chandigarh, for giving me an opportunity to put forth my views. I also welcome Mr. Wim, whom I am interacting first time. I would like to inform you that this 29 years old SEMA is a creation of the erstwhile SR Steel. The chairman of erstwhile SR Steel was the founding chairman of this association. I just wanted to inform Mr. Wim. And as regard to the 18th Iron and Steel Conference, I must say that after listening Mrs. Rasika Chaube, it is very difficult to now, because she has covered all the areas. Because raw material security is my main worries, but she has already covered in plenty. But still, I will like to put forth my views. It is a matter of great satisfaction that we are coming out from the shadows of COVID-19 pandemic. And she has said that how 2020-21 we have recovered in all the segment of the steel industry compared to the 2019-20. So I will take it further, one step further. If you see the JPC Q1 data, the sponge iron has shown a growth of 69.6%, which is around 70% in the Q1 compared to the last year's Q1. Similarly, the crude steel production has also gone by 62% as compared to the last year's Q1. So definitely, these are the indications that we have come out from the COVID pandemic situation, and we are on the boundary of a Q2, and I am sure the H1 result will also be very, very soothing and very, very encouraging in terms of the productions of the sponge iron, crude steel, finished steel consumption, and imports, etc. But as I said, that the raw material security is my main concern. She has covered and she has said that how iron ore mining was impacted because of the cancellation of so many mines in March 2019. But still, I find she has said that out of 18 mines, only 2 mines commissioned and started the production. Yes, production is particularly in the Odisha is gradually increasing, which is the largest producer of iron ore. But I am seeing the trend that the international iron ore prices had drastically come down, but the domestic iron ore prices, which has got an impact around 40% of cost of production of the DRI, has not come out in the same proportion. There is a need to be more correction, because the prices of the steel or sponge iron are not increasing, and the sponge iron producers are facing a lot of the increase in the raw material prices. Say, for example, non-coking coal. The prices of non-coking coal, especially this industry was using RB1, RB2 from the South Africa and Indonesia sources, because the CIL were not able to meet their requirement, and they were happy even paying little bit extra price for the imported coal. But now the imported coal, especially from the South Africa, has increased drastically. It has gone from 8,000 to now 10 to 11,000 at Gangavaram port. So there is an increase of 3,000 rupees per ton. Similarly, if we see the price of the gas, natural gas, the price of natural gas is now at the top. It is $18, which was around $9 to $10, and at the boundary of the producer, it used to be around $11 ke kareeb. Now it is more than $20. At this price, the gas-based sponge iron cannot retain their original level of production. I have interacted from my members. Some of the gas producers have cut down their production through the natural gas. Mr. Vim perhaps maybe throwing more light how the AMNS had diverted and substituted the natural gas from the chorus gas or the coke oven gas. This is what everyone is doing. Even the Angul plant of GSPL, they are also started using the in-house coke oven gas. So this is how the producers are trying to be cost competitive. So these are the factors which are impacting drastically the sponge iron production in the country. We are the largest for 19 years consecutive year. We are the largest DRI producer in the world. But I am afraid Iran is catching us very fast. And if the price correction is not taken, then we may lose out of our prime position in the world. Second issue is that Madam has talked about the PMG. I am getting the call from her ministry that your members should upload their projects, what they have conceived. But when I am pursuing with them, I found that there is a lot of the confusion because there are the lot of the options now to the sponge to the steel producer. Should they continue to be use the scrap-based mini plants or tiny plants based on a induction furnace or a arc furnace, or in a combination of a DRI and scrap, or should they opt? Should they start conceptualizing based on the syngas because syngas is talked nowadays a lot of that. The madam also talked about the green hydrogen rather than the brown hydrogen or the gray hydrogen. She has advocated that we should plan and conceptualize our projects, future projects based on a green hydrogen. And you are aware how this Reliance Group or the Adani Groups has taken off the hydrogen production concept, and they are claiming that the hydrogen would be made available at the cost of $1 per kg. But when I interact with my member, they say we don't know what will happen after 10 years. It is very difficult to conceive a project and to conceive such a high capex based on a mere assurance where the technology clarity is still not there. So like that, there is a lot of confusion, and I personally feel, based on my more than 45-year experience, that people will continue to conceive and implement the project based on a DRI, scrap, and EF or induction furnace route. Secondly, the larger producer, the main producer, will continue to have a brownfield expansion based on the blast furnace route, on the BFBF route. This is my estimate and assumptions, and I think this is going to happen. But there are the certain things which ministry has to clarify. I am watching that Ministry of Steel is advocating the syngas-based DRI steel production with the Niti Aayog and Ministry of Coal. At the same time, they are advocating with the MNRE the use of green hydrogen. So this is creating a lot of the confusion. What is the priority of the government? Should they prospective or existing in DRI or steel producers should start thinking in terms of a brown hydrogen, which means the syngas, or should they start thinking about the green hydrogen based on a renewable energy? So these are the things which you have to decide the course of expansion in the steel industry in a time to come. But I think the time is running down. But my other worries is that when we start thinking of a brown hydrogen or the green hydrogen, what will happen to the coal-based sponge iron industry, which has got a capacity, present capacity as per the JPC recent survey 37 million ton, and which as per my information, many of my members have conceived the rotary kiln of more than, or sponge iron plant of more than 600 TPD or 650 TPD, which is the largest, again largest model in the world. So how we are going to use this 40 million ton capacity in a time to come? If the government keep on pushing the use of hydrogen or the syngas, they should also think what will happen to this already installed capacity. So I think, in my opinion, the solution is that one R&D project should be seriously taken care of, to how to see how the operating parameters react with the use of either the syngas or the green hydrogen. This should be considered. Recently, I offered that SEMA will provide a rotary kiln with the raw material iron ore and coal to assist such a R&D project. Secondly, some of my large DRI or HBI producers are also thinking to you partially start using the merchant hydrogen even now. But there is no systematic study or technical study which will define how much green hydrogen can be injected into the vertical shaft furnace, and what will be the impact on a productivity, how the reaction will take place, and all that. There are the two technology suppliers, and as per my information, who are my member, they have been approached by all these 5 gas-based DRI producers to carry out a study, but their hands are full. Mr. Vim may also clarify how they are acting, because they say my hands are full. The entire world is moving on a hydrogen-based DRI and the EF. So, and they have got a limited staff. So there is a little bit thing, and I think the Ministry of Steel can sponsor such a study with the main 5 gas-based producers also, to study the impact of the hydrogen in the existing plant facilities. We cannot discard this around 60 million ton of a gas-based industry, which is producing around 10 to 11 million ton of a DRI. So what going to be the fate of this industry after say 10 years or 12 years? So these are my two suggestions. Basically, this should go, Mr. Chandigarh, to the Ministry of Steel. One, there should be a R&D project, should be assisted by the government, and involving the sponge iron industry to explore the possibility of using the brown hydrogen or the green hydrogen in the existing facility. Secondly, they should sponsor a study how hydrogen or the brown hydrogen, green hydrogen, brown hydrogen can be gainfully and economically utilized in the existing gas-based DRI or HBI plants. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kashiva. And your suggestions well taken, sir. In fact, if you see the last month's Steel World editorial, the same question was raised by me, that we should spend more time and more energy into innovating new things and new technologies, new processes which are cost beneficial, and also increasing the efficiency of the steel making process. So thank you very much, Mr. Kashiva. And now we move on to our last speaker, the inaugural address by Mr. Wim van Gerven. And before I ask him, before I request him to make his speech, I would like to introduce him. Mr. Wim van Gerven presently is serving as Director and Vice President Operations, ArcelorMittal Nippon Steel India since February 2020. As Head of Operations, he drives the production ramp-up, the expansion projects, and the implementation of new technologies with a focus on the reduction of the carbon footprint. Mr. Wim began his professional career as an electrical maintenance manager at ArcelorMittal Gent, Belgium in 1988. Over the past 3 decades, he has progressed within ArcelorMittal to hold various senior positions in Europe, including Belgium, Germany, and Poland. Mr. Van Gerven has previously served as CEO of ArcelorMittal Gent and CEO of ArcelorMittal Flat Europe Business Division North. Prior to joining AMNS India, He was Chief Operating Officer of ArcelorMittal Europe Flat Products between 2014 and 2019. Van Gerven also chaired the Belgium Steel Federation. Mr. Wim Van Gerven holds the master's degree in mechanical and electrical engineering from University of Gent and MBA from Vlarik Leuven Gent Management School, Belgium. He has experience with technological advances that are enhancing the industry's efficiency and its supply chain, converting traditional production environment into highly automated smart plants. Digitalization enables the steel manufacturing process to produce better quality with less resources and offers more flexibility in the production process. And I request Mr. Wim to make his inaugural address. Mr. Wim.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Shandekar. I have, I have probably less time left than I have supposed, so I will try to shorten it a little bit and try to avoid duplications with the former speakers. So the first point I wanted to stress is that basically our product is a fantastic product. It's the fabric of life. You cannot imagine a modern society without steel. And I think the 300 million ton target set by India is a very challenging target on one hand, and an ambition against 2031 is certainly a very ambitious target, knowing that we are about at 100 million tons today. With regard to the forecast, I can be short. I think the future looks, the intermediate future looks good. Global steel demand will grow in 2021 5.8% and will reach 1.87 billion tons. And in 2022, this will grow with another 2.7% to 1.92. So this is all positive. Basically, in all steel-consuming sectors, we will have a positive evolution, especially construction, where infrastructure projects become more important, and they are also a tool or the only tool in many countries for the economic recovery. We expect here the same level in 2022 or even better than 2019 levels with 2 to 4%. Also, auto industry after the lockdown will be better off. Scrapping policies of cars were mentioned. There is for the moment a shortage experience, but this is being addressed and will also disappear in the coming period. So also engineering, we have here a highly globalized supply chain, and the disruption was one of the major problems that emerged for the machining industry during the lockdown. But also this will get better. We will have a lot of supply chains that will become more flexible and more reliable, and will accelerate trend towards digitalization and automation. Companies also question their footprint and relocate to other countries, and this is an opportunity certainly for India. When I look to the current or the previous times, we see a big volatility in basically everything. Due to the COVID crisis, we have our supply chains were very much affected. Prices went down, are also very volatile. Governments reacted, and this was all not helping the production in a stable way. Prices, it was already mentioned, prices volatility is still there. If you see what we pay for the moment for a vessel of coke, this is a tremendous price never seen the past. And this is that we are not at the end of this volatility. What we also see in these current interest times is that climate change becomes an issue. We have the COP26 meetings. There is a lot of political pressure on the world stage. We see weather phenomena, which is basically which are increasing to more dryness, to hurricanes, floods. We have seen it all in the news. But probably what is frightening the most of a lot of people is the fiscal policies that are being made in a lot of countries. Europe has its cross-border adjustment tax. There are a lot of people talking about carbon tax. England is already having it, by the way. So this will become an issue, and there is a lot of pressure on it. And the geopolitical scene is also a kind of volatility, which is we see the rise of China, we see the superpower that ended a war in a quite remarkable way. That is not helping, I think, global leadership. When I look, this is all what is the volatility, but I look especially to our industry, then we know things which have not happened, which have not changed. And what has not changed is that we are a highly capital intensive industry, which needs years to build capacities. We are exposed to a global market. This all has not changed. And we cannot, I would say, live on an island. We have to make sure that these realities are being taken into consideration when we develop policies, when we invest in new capex to build these capacities where we are all fond of. We want to increase to 300 million tons. So technical solutions, especially the climate change here, put us here in a very great challenge. And I put especially the word great because on one hand, it is a very big challenge, but on the other hand, it's certainly a challenge that will bring us in a more sustainable way, the world in a more sustainable way. And in this way, this is good for everybody. So what we know is that the technical solutions to produce low carbon exist. I would say we can immediately use pure hydrogen for 30% of our DRI production, which is 2 or 3 million, 2 million tons we can have from green energy from today. This is not the point. And we can also scale this up. What is the point is that there is this hydrogen is not available, and it's certainly not available at a reasonable price. And when you would want to increase the availability of this hydrogen in a green way, then you would have to think about renewable energy. And renewable energy on a scale which is very, very big. Huh? I always compare when we say 7 million tons plant, we need almost 3,000 megawatts to produce the energy which is needed. These are not small solar cells fields. These are huge square kilometers solar cell fields. So this is important, I think, to know that we currently do not have this reality, and we also do not have the policies. So if we really want to go in this direction, we need to adapt our footprint, and this is a long-term footprint. You build a blast furnace for the next 15 years, and when we want to scale up the production, then we should better have a good plan to make sure that all the capex is not become redundant in the years to come. What is needed, I think, is an international framework and there we will probably have to work together with the public opinion and with the government to make sure that we create a stepwise approach to go into this green energy. Important here is that we have policies that see how we can start producing low CO2 steel, which will have a much higher cost when you compare it with the current production way, because the current production way does not take into account the cost of CO2. We will also need policies that support the companies in the R&D that is necessary for CO2-free steel making, because there are, I mentioned a few possibilities with DRI and EAF coming from hydrogen and coming from renewables in the EAF. But on the other hand, there are probably many more that we can investigate and that are available. So there has to be, also the stepwise approach is also needed to have the necessary times to spend the capex in renewables and in the adaptation of the footprint. We also need, I think, a stepwise approach in recycling and bio-waste use. We can use a lot of bio-waste in our and other wastes. We can use this in our process, but also the necessary legislative framework has to be there. It's not so simple. You cannot burn whatever you want, and probably nobody would accept it in the society also. So this is important. We should have also a target. We should have a plan and a target. For the moment, this is basically missing, and we should also have a view on what we do with carbon capture and use, and perhaps also carbon capture and storage. I think when we look at a little bit from a distance, then the Indian possibilities for carbon capture and storage are not as good. So I see coal-based technologies less. I would prefer to have technologies based on renewables and making use of the good sun India has, because at the end everything is coming from the sun. Then try to use the fossil fuels that we for the moment have. I think the need for a framework is basically urgent, because if we have to do this huge growth capex, as I said before, we have to make sure that we do not end with a lot of outdated equipment in 15 or 20 years. This is the most important things I had to say. I think it remains very challenging times, very interesting times also. And I think all the engineers, and not only the engineers, but also the politicians, the people in the society, and their skills are required to solve this task. We owe it to our society, our children, and the future generations. I think thanks to Steel World for organizing this event and giving a forum to share our views on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Beam. It was very insightful speech by you, and I'm sure these are really, as you said, these are really challenging times and interesting times. And your experience in implementing new technologies, and also your experience in Belgium Steel Federation would help not only to AMNS but also to the Indian steel industry to grow further. So thank you very much, and thank you very much for your presence. Thank you. That brings that brings us to the end of this inaugural session, and I am very thankful to all the dignitaries of the inaugural session, Madam Rasika, Chaube, Mr. D. Kashiva, and Mr. Beam, for their excellent presentations and speeches for this 18th Iron and Steel Summit. This brings us to the end of this session. We'll have a short break of 5 minutes, and we'll start with our next session, which is a panel discussion. And mind well, the subject is very interesting: steel making in 2030. This was briefly touched by all the speakers because that is very important subject, very important aspect of steel industry, that what technology we are going to evolve and how steel making is going to change in coming years. So with that, I thank all the viewers also to be they were with us, and just a break of 5 minutes and we'll be back. Thank you.